A new challenger has stepped up to the fold in the smartphone folding marketplace. It is the Honor Magic Versus. And the one that I have here is the black 512GB, 12GB RAM variant. And right now I'm using the Galaxy Z Fold 4 as my daily phone. So it's going to be interesting to see how this compares. Let's unbox it, see what it comes with, and I'll run you through some of the key specs. Very premium packaging here, I have to say. And here's a little message from Honor: go beyond. Okay, this is nice, very shiny, very shiny. You can see fingerprints on there already. And I can tell straight away that hinge there is considerably thinner than the Samsung hinge. I do have the case on this right now. Take the case off for you guys. So that's the Samsung hinge on the left, and this is the Honor hinge on the right. And you can see actually the phone's a bit taller as well, looking at it side by side. And one of the interesting things about the hinge here on the Honor Versus is actually it's made from an aerospace grade metal, which is considerably lighter than the usual sort of aluminium that they used in the past. And that applies to the entire body on this phone. So actually it does feel quite a bit lighter than the Samsung straight away in the hand. And when it comes to the thickness of the Honor Magic Versus when it's closed, it's actually just 12.9 millimeters, and that's actually really good for a folding phone. And when I had the briefing about this phone, one of the things that was really highlighted was how there's no gap between the two screens when it's closed, unlike the Samsung, which has a bit of a gap. That just opens up the potential for things to get stuck in there. So not having a gap between the two screens is a pretty big deal. And something else that's really interesting about this hinge mechanism is how many parts it consists of now. Apparently there's only 4 parts to it, and let's test it out. That's really nice. There's a bit of a spring there. I have to say, that is a nice hinge. Maybe not quite as sturdy as the Samsung. There's a little bit of a snap there at the end. Something that I really like about this phone straight away is actually how it's kind of curved here on this edge. So that makes it really comfortable to hold in the hand. And if you're wondering about this outer display, it's actually a 6.4 inch, 120 Hertz, 21:9 HDR 10 plus display. And when it comes to the resolution here, it's 2560 by 1080. So it's kind of a quad HD setup. Honor have put a lot of emphasis in making this outer screen the best that it can be, and the brightness on this is actually up to 1200 nits. And there's also a software in here, a dynamic dimming software that's designed to protect your eyes, and that also carries over to the big open screen as well. And when it comes to the inner display, this is actually a 90 Hertz display. Actually not going up to that 120 Hertz might save battery life on this device in comparison to the Samsung that has that 120 Hertz. It's a 10:9 ratio, it's 7.9 inches. The resolution is pretty interesting here. It's actually 2272 by a 1984 resolution on that inner display. And you'll notice one of the things they haven't done that Samsung did do was kind of hide the in-display camera. You can see it's very visible up here, top right corner, and that doesn't bother me too much. It's such a big screen, it's not that much of a distraction. Now, one of the big advantages that this has over the Z Fold 4 is the fact that the battery is much bigger. It's a 5000 milliamp hour battery, and actually split into 2 sides on this device, and it can charge with 66 watts, so it's considerably faster and bigger than the Samsung battery. And I do believe the charger is in the box. So let's take a look at what else is in this package, because this is a big box compared to what we're used to seeing from the high-end flagships these days. There we go, that's our 66 watt charger in the box. This is a European charging pin though. If you buy this in the UK, you will get a UK charger. Charging cable with an orange accent is in the box also. Ejector pin. And that is a protective case for one half of the phone. And if you guys are wondering about the color options available, this is the black, and I'll tell you what, it is incredibly glossy. There's also a cyan version of this as well, which is probably the one I would go for out of choice. And that's how it looks with the protective case applied. There's kind of like a leather finish here. Feels like leather as well. I believe that's going to be what they call a vegan leather. So no cows were killed in the making of this. That is a really nice case, and one of the reasons they probably haven't put a case for the front side of the screen is because the screen to body ratio is actually 90%. So there's very slim bezels around the front of this phone, and in order to make a case that would actually fit around that right edge would be difficult, especially if you're not going to use any kind of adhesive to keep it in place. And I don't know if you can see this, this is the Z Fold 4 case. This is the front part of it, and there's actually an adhesive strip down the side because that's so thin that if it hasn't got adhesive, it'll probably just break and come away from the device really easily. I have to say, Honor have really outdone themselves when it comes to the design on this foldable phone. I think it's definitely one of the nicest you can get right now. And that hinge is satisfying, I have to say. And something else that this phone has that the Z Fold 4 doesn't is actually an infrared blaster. So that can control pretty much any infrared device once you program it in using the software on board. And the software out of the box is Magic OS, and that's running on Android 13. This is running the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is a slightly overclocked version of the Gen 1 that's used in the Z Fold 4. So the processing power is slightly higher, and it's also going to be more energy efficient. So when you combine that with the bigger battery, the faster charging, the lesser 90 Hz refresh rate on the bigger screen, that should all combine to give you a better battery experience here on the Honor Magic Versus. I was going to do your sort of traditional review, but then I realized so many other people had done it like 3 months ago. So my conclusion was, why not give you guys something that you haven't seen before, and that would be a comparison between this and the Z Fold 4. And the hardware, if you're wondering, is very advanced. We've got 50 megapixel sensor at the top, that's a Sony sensor there. 8 megapixel at the center, that's the telephoto, and that's actually got optical image stabilization. And then we've got a 50 megapixel ultra wide, which doubles up as the macro. But what's going to make this comparison difficult is the fact that there's so many cameras on the devices. So we also have the in-display camera here on the cover screen, and then we also have another in-display camera on the inside. And then of course you can use the primary cameras to take selfies as well. So the functionality when it comes to the cameras on folding phones is pretty crazy, and it's going to be hard to test. So that's been my quick unboxing, first impressions and tour of the Honor Magic Versus. Make sure you turn on your notifications, subscribe for the comparison when it goes live. And also there's loads of other cool tips, tricks and reviews and all that kind of stuff on this channel that you might enjoy. So check that out, and I will see you in the next one. Don't be late.